Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Polter and I am the director of WEBA. Today, we will have a presentation about the Mont University in the United Kingdom. And we are very pleased to welcome here Mr. Martin Booth, who will start with the presentation. With us, we have today, by the way, Bajinder from WEBA London. We have Mr. Amr from the Mont University and Joe Agar from the Mont University as well. So Martin, welcome here today, and I'm very pleased that you give an introduction about the Mont University. I will pass now to you so you can start to introduce yourself and you can start with the presentation. Thank you.
Superb. Thanks very much, Richard. And it's very nice to be here. And obviously, we're very excited about our partnership with WEBA. So what I'm going to do, I'll give a quick brief presentation introduction, and then Joe will give a more detailed presentation so that we give yourselves and the team a really good overview and sort of training on the university. So I think the first thing to say about Mont University is obviously we're based in the UK. We are based in the city of Leicester, which is 1 hour north of London by train. So we're fairly close to the capital city. We're also about 40 minutes from the next biggest city in the UK, Birmingham, and we're quite central in terms of England. So in terms of students being able to enjoy all aspects of England, you know, we're quite in quite a central location. Before I talk a little bit about the university, I think one of the key things to mention is that is really about the city of Leicester, where the university is based. If Leicester is known for one thing, it's being an international city. And that's not from an international standpoint in terms of people having come to the city internationally recently. It's had people coming and joining and living in the city for 30, 40, 50 years. And it's true to say that we really have a very, very large population of people and families who've been living here for many, many years. So we won't have people from everywhere in the world, but I would say in terms of the main places globally, we have big communities living in the city. What that really means from a student standpoint is that obviously when students are coming to live in the UK and study in the UK, they're leaving their homes and they're coming to be in another place. And what they can be very comfortable in knowing is that the city, because of its international background and the international communities, they're going to be very at home here. So whilst the city obviously is a very British city too, and they can enjoy all aspects of that, what they will almost always be able to find is that they'll be able to interact with people from their home country. There are groups and communities from their home country. Religious practices, you know, whatever religious faith you may have, you will find that in Leicester. Whatever kinds of foods you enjoy, you'll be able to enjoy what you have at home here as well, whether that be buying the foods or restaurants and that type of thing. So it really is a very key aspect of the university, and that we're very fortunate to be in a really, really international city. And an international city that is kind of harmonious with all the different cultures. So it's a really big plus. I would suggest obviously that any students who are thinking about coming and studying in the UK, they will either have already had a look, or they will look and find out about the city, and they'll very quickly see that that what I'm talking about there in terms of its internationalism, if you like, is very prevalent. So that's the first thing. In terms of our international population of students, we have students from over 135 countries around the world. So students joining us, obviously we're going to be interacting and mixing with British students, but literally people from around the world. So in terms of just meeting and careers and future experiences, they're going to have the opportunity to interact with all sorts of people from everywhere in the world, literally. So that's a really big plus as well. Generally, your average student is on a budget in terms of their financial money they have available. They're not business people. And one of the really great things about the City of Leicester is that last year we were voted one of the top 3 cities in the UK in terms of affordability for students. So what that basically means is students can have, you know, a quality accommodation, can afford to live, you know, have a social life without spending a lot of money when you compare that to maybe some of the other cities in the UK. As I say, we're top 3. So that's a really key and an important point as well. In talking a little bit more about the university, we have around about 450 programs. We're teaching across many different levels. We have 4 large and diverse faculties. And I think crucially there, when we're talking about international students and when international students are thinking about going overseas, perhaps come to the UK to study, they tend to normally be thinking about specific program types. And it's not really by accident that our program offering is very well tailored to the kinds of programs that students are thinking about studying. I wouldn't suggest for a moment that we'll have every program from every student, but I would suspect that in most cases, when they're talking to the Weber team about their plans and the areas they want to study, they're very likely to either have the program here or have something very similar. So that's a really big plus as well. Excuse me. One final point, we have excuse me.
It's very interesting. I mean, students from 135 different countries, and over 450 programs. I mean, this is unique, and this is excellent because we have students from all around the world, and this will help a lot to understand more about your university.
Yeah. And then, so one other key point, we have when you're thinking about students who are living overseas and plan to come to study in the UK, they are clearly making an investment, and that's obviously a financial investment. You know, traveling to another country, paying tuition fees, living here, but also they're making an investment in terms of, you know, they're leaving their families, they're leaving their friends, and they're coming to be in another place. So at the university, we have a statistic in terms of employability, and that is 97.3%. And what that means is that within 6 months of students finishing their program, 97.3% of those students will either be in graduate type employment or have gone on to a further education. That's a really, really good statistic. It's well above the average in terms of UK universities. And in fact, it beats some of the really highest ranking universities in the UK. So talking about students and if you like, return on investment, they know that when they, you know, they spend that money to come and study at De Montfort University, when they take that time out to come and live overseas, that with that statistic, again, 97.3%, they can really be very confident that they're going to get an excellent return on their investment in terms of their career opportunities, and within 6 months as well. So I think that's one other key thing. Okay, then moving away maybe slightly from talking about the university, I'd maybe just like to touch briefly on the COVID situation. I mean, obviously the COVID pandemic is something that we're having to deal with globally. It's not just in any specific country; it's everywhere. Fortunately, in the UK, you know, we're quite well advanced in terms of dealing with the situation. You may know that we developed some of the vaccines. Currently, as of today, I think over 22 million people in the UK have received their first vaccine. Obviously, we're going in terms of priority first. And I'm pleased to say, actually, that I had my vaccine a couple of days ago. But the governmental plan is that all adults by July of this year will have had their first vaccine. If anyone has a look at the statistics in terms of the numbers of people, new infections, people in hospital, we are doing incredibly well. And it's really a very, very positive situation. And the country is looking to really open up over the next months. But what is really key is that our next intake is the September intake, which is really across all of the levels. And students who are planning to join for that intake they can be very confident that they will have a, if you like, a normal university experience. So they're going to be able to travel to the UK in a normal way, go out to shops in a normal way, have face-to-face teaching and all of those aspects. So I think it's really important that students know that they're going to have a normal experience and quite crucially that they're going to be safe. And I think arguably, because of how advanced we are in terms of the vaccine rollout and some of the things that we put in place to make the country safe, I think it's very, very likely that UK is probably already and certainly will be one of the safest places to be come the September intake. So I think students can be very, very confident, and obviously their families as well. The only thing that maybe we as from a recruitment aspect might want to consider and keep students informed is that obviously there were many students due to the COVID situation last year who didn't join universities, who have deferred for a year. And obviously because of the improving COVID situation and because of the UK has the 2-year post-study work visa, we're expecting this year to really be a very big number in terms of number of students wanting to join us. We're a very, very big institution, getting towards 30,000 students, getting towards 3,000 staff, but we don't have an unlimited number of students that we can teach. So obviously it's in students' interests to make their applications and kind of start that process to join the university soon. And also in terms of the process of coming to the UK, so there are visa implications, which obviously Weber and you can support your students with, and that's a fairly simple process, but it's not something that you can do in a week and a half. So the longer you give that, the more simple that process will be. But also because of we're expecting really an influx of numbers, I think it's really in students' interest to apply and get that process moving fast. Anyway, I've rambled on for quite a few minutes, but hopefully that was an interesting introduction. And I'll pass over to Joe, who will give a much more detailed presentation on all aspects of the university. So,
thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That's great. I'll just share my screen with you all now. So just bear with me 2 seconds because my computer is a little bit slow at the best of times. So just 2 moments. Can you see that?
Yes, very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just going to share my screen now. So, of course, welcome to De Montfort University, albeit virtually. And as you can see there, we're proud to be more, and this is our official slogan. As Martin alluded to earlier, we are a TEF Gold accredited university, which we were awarded in 2017. So that's something we're also really proud of. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later on in the presentation. But this slide here just basically summarizes, let's say, the key main points Martin has already explored. Leicester itself is a very vibrant international and let's say centrally located city. So we're just over an hour away from London, close to Birmingham, Sheffield. And I guess with the recent announcement from the UK government that they're going to set up like an economic free port around the East Midlands airport area, that is good news, not only for the whole of Leicestershire, but also for our students and the university itself, as there could be collaboration there. So yeah, going to move on to the next slide now. And we're going to show you some photos of Leicester itself. And I think everyone in here right now knows the one in the top left-hand corner. Of course, Leicester City's Premier League winning campaign in 2016. So yeah, just there next to the Leicester City photo is the Bradgate Park, which is a beautiful historic park in Leicestershire. So it's a really good place especially for students to go to let's say break away from their studies and feed ducks or see wild deer roaming around the grounds. Towards the right of the slide, you can see the National Space Centre. So for any students that are interested in space, rockets, or anything to do with the kind of, let's say, space mission right now, or if a student is interested in aeronautical engineering, it could be a good addition to their experience. It's a 10-minute walk away from our campus, and it's just adjacent to Abbey Park. See there at the bottom, you can see the High Cross Shopping Centre, which is a beautiful big space with a variety of clothing shops, restaurants, bars. We have a crazy golf centre, cinema, and we've recently opened up a bowling alley So there's lots of things for students to do entertainment-wise outside of studying and working hard. Outside of the shopping centre and moving towards the centre of the city, we actually have a big fruit, veg, fish and meat market where students can buy produce from scratch at a very affordable rate. So everything is pretty much on the doorstep for students, including supermarkets as well. And in the bottom left-hand corner, for any students that are interested in learning about history or local culture in Leicester, here is a statue of King Richard III, whose remains were actually found underneath the old Leicester Grammar School car park around 7 years ago now. So we have a museum commemorating his life. So that, again, it's a 5-minute walk away from our campus, and is a really good addition for students to kind of get amongst. Okay, so this slide here is all about our campus. So on the top left-hand corner, you can see a photo of the art, design, and architecture complex, which we spent around 58 million alone in recent years renovating to ensure that it is, of the highest quality. Because of course, when students decide to study abroad, of course, they want to have that environment for them to not only study hard but also thrive. You can see lots of green spaces, so especially on a nice summer's day, it's a really good chance for friends to mix together, especially. Bottom left-hand corner, you can see a photo of the historic magazine right next to the business and law faculty. And here at the bottom, on the right hand corner, you can see the health and life science faculty. So that's the Hawthorne building. So that's a really unique space, and it's a massive building itself. And in the top right hand corner, you can see the Trinity House. And this is where our Vice Chancellor and legal team reside. And this actually used to be an old hospital many years ago before De Montfort University opened. Okay, so this slide here just basically shows you at a high level the investments we've made in recent years. We've spent approximately 136 million in counting, renovating our campus in the last 7 to 10 years. And as I mentioned, we spent 58 million renovating the art and design faculty. We've also spent 8 million renovating our sports centre and our leisure centre. So we now have a state-of-the-art leisure centre with a climbing wall, a gym, badminton courts, swimming pool, sauna, and so on. So I guess in the age of COVID, where everyone's kind of hyper aware of health and fitness, your students will be able to go to a leisure centre, pay affordable rates as well for monthly membership. Okay, so in terms of accommodation, you can see all of, pretty much all of the options available here. And there's kind of two crucial takeaways for international students. So number one, accommodation is guaranteed for all international students, regardless if it's university owned or private. And number two, it's within 5 to 10 minutes of our campus. So in terms of your students, that's number one, convenient. Number two, it's secure. And it gives them plenty of time to get from their accommodation to their lecture. So hopefully they will never be late. But yeah, so that's it for the accommodation. You're roughly looking about, students are maybe spending about 90 to 95 to 100 pound a week, which is really affordable, especially if you compare it to bigger cities such as London and Manchester. Your students are going to make a significant saving whilst they're living in Leicester. Okay, so moving on to our faculties, and first of all, our business and law school. So on the left-hand side, you can see some of the courses which we offer, and they're also our niche courses, because as you'd expect, of course, we have business and management, economics, accounting and finance, the kind of traditional subjects which you would expect. But on the right-hand side, you can see some of the kind of key points of the faculty itself. So we actually do have a Bloomberg system, which is linked to the Wall Street Stock Exchange. So any kind of investment-minded students do get a chance to actually play on the artificial stock market before they actually go in, head first. So we have plenty of professional recognition and accreditations as well, and we actually do have a devoted slide to that later on in the presentation, to which we'll talk about in more detail. So this slide here is really quite special because we have the Leicester Castle Business School, which is part of the business faculty. And it's still relatively new at De Montfort University. So in recent years, we've spent £4.2 million renovating the old castle, which actually has the longest running courtroom in the whole of the UK. So we're very proud that we have the first UK Parliament was actually set up here. So this is where our bespoke postgraduate business courses are taught. So we have the likes of Global MBA, which is an entry-level MBA, and students don't necessarily need experience. And I guess what's quite unique about this course is that students don't have to take the traditional dissertation. Of course, they can if they want to, but they have the option of doing individual-led projects, which act in a very similar way to internships. So, for example, we have the executive company project, and this is basically where we pair up a student with a local, national, or even international company in some instances, and they'll work quite closely over a 3-month period. For example, the company might say to the student, okay, we want you to set up a business campaign or marketing plan for us, or e-commerce website. And throughout those 3 months, the student will work quite closely with that company, gaining real life experience. And at the end of the process, they'll need to submit like a report which summarizes what they learned, what they could have done better, and how it's going to help them in the future. And who knows, with the news of the new postgraduate route now, which guarantees students 2 years work experience, it could be a good lead-in for students to then get a job once they graduate. This project also counts towards a student's final grade because it's 60 credits. So there's a real emphasis on the practical side of things there. We also have project management, we have marketing management, we have international business and management alongside marketing, HRM, and finance. And we also have a really exciting course called air transport management. So the two program leaders themselves actually have 30 years experience in the industry, and actually moved from a very well-established university to our university because we allowed them to teach this course through our business school. So we're very proud that we are the only UK university as of right now to be teaching this course for our business faculty, where we look purely at the business side of air transport. So for this particular course, your students don't need to come from any particular background. They can come from economics, engineering, geography, politics, and so on, as long as their experience is relevant and their application is strong. Okay, so here is a photo of one of our lecturers and students in the Bloomberg trading system. And now we're moving on to our computing, engineering, and media faculty. And without a shadow of a doubt, it's probably in competition with our business and law school as the most popular faculty. And what's quite unique is that all of the computing related courses are developed in conjunction with industry experts such as Rolls-Royce, Airbus, and Deloitte. And only recently, the cybersecurity MSc and cyber technology MSc were actually accredited by the UK government, GTHQ government headquarters. So that, for any of your students, should act not only as reassurance, but should give them confidence that there's probably no better place in the whole of the UK or even the whole world for them to be studying particular courses such as those. As well as this, according to the Shanghai World Rankings 2020, our computing school was actually voted in the top 1% of research citations. So for any of your students, that again should act as proof that their degrees are going to be very much research focused. And they're also going to be taught by lecturers who are renowned in the field of research. So if they want to do UG, PG, or PhD, there's still going to be a strong focus on that, and it's going to be relevant to industry. As well, on the left-hand side, you can see other courses which are available in terms of engineering. Of course, we have aeronautical engineering at both undergraduate and postgraduate. We have energy engineering, mechatronics, mechanical engineering, energy engineering and sustainability as well. And we've actually got a new course, artificial intelligence ESC, which is really exciting, especially with the whole world now focusing on AI and big data and so on. We also do have a handful of journalism and film studies, media and digital effects related courses as well. So we have a green screen within the engineering media school. So that is again of added value for your students. And to be honest, with our internal, the Montfort's internal media and social media team being so strong, that should really act as testament for your students that they could potentially get opportunities whilst working within inside the Montfort University. Here is a photo within inside our Queen's building, which is where our engineering and technology, and media courses are taught. As you can see, it's very open plan. There's lots of breakout areas for students to wait in whilst they're waiting for their lectures. And what's really unique about this particular building, especially in the era of COVID, is that we have some special ventilators at the top of the building, on the roof, to ensure that there's fresh air, flooding through the building at all times. Here's a photo of some of our mechanical engineering students as well, developing a race car. So that is one of the biggest projects mechanical engineering and mechatronics students have the option of undertaking whilst they're here. And I guess, as you know, there are lots of F1 companies based in the UK, so there's going to be ample opportunities for your students to get amongst that, be it on a part-time or full-time basis. Okay, so moving on to our health and life science faculty. And I think the whole situation that we're in right now, and the focus of governments changing towards life sciences, this is likely to be really attractive to your students. And we're very proud that we've been teaching pharmacy at the Mont University for the last 100 years. And only recently we've started to develop kind of some subset courses. So, for example, pharmaceutical quality by design, pharmaceutical biotechnology, and pharmaceutical cosmetics. So that could be really interesting for some of your students that maybe have got some experience and are wanting to specialize in that particular domain. We also have adult nursing, BSc. So for this, students need to be a registered nurse in their home country. They need to have an IELTS of 7 overall with 6.5 in the writing. But we do have very limited seats available for international students due to NHS regulations. But we would still encourage such students to apply. We also have the likes of nutrition BSc, especially given the current situation, we're receiving a lot of applications for this particular course because it focuses, as in the name, on nutrition and its benefits for physical and mental health. Focuses on immunology and global public health as well. So that's really quite unique. And as well, we have biomedical sciences and psychology. Here's a photo of a couple of our students, pharmacy students, are on placement. So with our strong links to the NHS and also Boots Pharmaceuticals, which is based in Nottingham, students get a lot of opportunities to actually go on placement and really kind of hone their skills and grow as an individual and student. And finally, last but not least, our art and design faculty. Without a shadow of a doubt, the heartbeat of De Montfort University. 151 years ago now, we were founded as an art school, and still to this day, we champion it. So, we offer the likes of architecture, ceramics, product design, interior design, fashion, textiles, the list goes on. And on the left-hand side, you can see some of the courses which we have available. According to Guardian 2020, we were actually voted in the top 7 in the UK for our fashion courses and the top 13 for our design and textiles. So that hopefully will show you where our expertise lies. And to be honest, if you're making a decision to study such a course at De Montfort, you're making a really good one. The Next clothing company, their head office is actually based in Leicester as well. And many of our graduates have gone on to work there, especially as they're local. And Next really do encourage close collaboration with us to ensure that. Another interesting thing for your students is that in recent years, we've developed kind of some hybrid courses because we've noticed a trend where students are interested in kind of looking at the business side of fashion rather than the making side of fashion. So now we have the likes of fashion management with marketing, we have design, entrepreneurship and management, we have fashion buying and merchandising and also marketing. So that is a really good option for your students, especially if they have a real kind of interest in fashion, but have previously done like a maybe business undergraduate. It could be an option for them. Here's a photo from within inside the art and design faculty as well. As you can see, there's lots of space, breakout areas as well. And we do have a variety of individual and group workshops. So I guess when we do return to campus, shortly in full after Easter, students can still honour social distancing and feel safe whilst they're honing their craft. Okay, so here is a photo of our food court, which is absolutely massive. And I guess, I don't mean to keep mentioning this, but given the current situation we're in, we have the space to honour social distancing and create that COVID-friendly environment. Already we've set up one-way systems. Already we've moved some of those tables as well, so that when we do go back on campus, everything is pretty much set up. We basically serve pre-cooked food within this food court. So I guess the big plus for your students is that they don't need to go into town, or they don't need to go home to get lunch between lectures and seminars. They can literally go into the food court, sit down, have their food within 30 minutes, and they can go back to their lecture. We also do have a variety of halal food available. We have a vegetarian and vegan cafe as well within this building. So for any of those students that have those dietary needs, we are considerate to you. Okay, so moving on to our TEF Gold, which we briefly touched on at the start of the presentation. And to be honest, I'm not going to talk about every single point on this slide because there's a lot to take in. But I think the biggest kind of point here is that DMU is the #1 university for numbers of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic students in highly skilled employment. Like Martin said at the start of the presentation, 97.3% of our students are in full-time employment or continued studies 6 months after graduation. But the fact that we have that as well really shows you that we are a university of inclusion. We have the diversity amongst our staff and our students who can support those international students and BAME students who need that extra kind of guidance or can need to talk to somebody in their mother tongue. Okay, so moving on to DATE testing. This is our De Montfort Academic Test of English. So in short, this is our online internal English test. So this is UKVI accredited, so it counts towards your student's CAS and 10 points. And it works in a very similar way to IELTS. But to be honest, it's a little bit more manageable than IELTS because because it's split into 2 days. So day one, students will do the reading and writing test. So the reading is 1 hour long and the writing is 1 hour and 15. So what we would suggest is that your students really need to focus on time management, especially with the reading. So if they get stuck on one question, of course, move on to the next and so forth. And then on day two, they'll do a combined speaking and listening test. So it's not separate, it's combined. So that really just show you kind of the dynamics. Once a student has taken the test, they'll receive their result within 5 to 7 working days. But then let's say, hopefully they don't, but let's say if the student wasn't to meet their desired grade, they can retake the test within 3 months. So that could act as reassurance to your students because we know taking these tests could be kind of traumatic and nerve-wracking. So as long as we tell them that, it should help. But in order for your students to take this test, and this is really crucial, they need to, #1, apply to the Mont University so we can get them onto the system. And then once they're on the system, we can then produce their student number. So that's really crucial. Another thing is that the DATE test is only taking place once a week. And we only have limited availability. So of course, again, the sooner they do it, the better. Okay, so moving on to our pre-sessional English availability. So all of the courses will be run online and won't be part of the offer letter or the CAS. So in order for students to actually apply for the pre-sessional English course, they need to have an offer letter first of all. So of course they need to apply, then get the offer letter, and then apply separately to the pre-sessional English course. The courses themselves, dependent on the ability of the student, will start varying dates, but it will be from May to July. So we still do have time, but that's just to give you an idea of the availability. And to be honest, within these courses, students will learn academic English. They'll learn how to write essays as well. And it's really quite a comfortable environment for them to learn English, especially the academic side of things. So there'll be in-class assessments. There isn't, let's say, a one-size-fits-all test at the end. So that, again, should act as reassurance if students are looking for that model of learning. Okay, so in terms of placement opportunities, I know I briefly touched on this during the Leicester Castle Business School slide, but we actually do have a placement team in all 4 of our faculties, and actually only recently, as of 2 weeks ago now, our placement teams were actually voted as the best in the whole of the UK in terms of student support and producing outcomes for students. So we're very proud of that, and that's something we really want to champion because we do believe that students, no matter where they come from, can have these opportunities. So we also, just to clarify, the placement year opportunity is only for undergraduate students. For postgraduate, we don't have any exclusive placement year options. And I guess that's pretty much the same for all UK universities right now. And with the reintroduction of the new, let's say, postgraduate route, that guarantees students 2 years work anyway. But internally, students can take part in the schemes such as the front runner program. And this is basically where a student maybe works for 2 or 4 weeks in an internal department at Mont, maybe the marketing team, maybe the social media team, maybe the computing team, just to get some experience, just to kind of get a foot in the door, get to know more people at the university and gain confidence. And at the bottom there, of course, I've spoken about Executive Company Project, which is part of the individual projects in the business school. We also have the Business Research Project, which is more so a consultancy project where a student will kind of, let's say, go through the trials and tribulations of starting up a business and so on. And then there, the Global Intern is basically in collaboration with one of our initiatives called DMU Global, which I'll touch on in a slide or two. And it's basically where we encourage our students to combine their studies with international experience. And for some of those opportunities, students will be able to work abroad for short periods of time, which is a really fantastic opportunity. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, we are inspired by industry. So on the left-hand side, you can see some of the accreditations that we have, which are really beneficial, especially for students, because they're exempt from exams to many professional qualifications. And on the right-hand side, you can see some of the partnerships that we have. And we have over 2,000 work placements available for students. And just a few of the companies there, like IBM, NHS, Channel 4, BBC, Airbus, and so on. And even on this slide here, there's even more companies for you to look at, just to show you the scale of how big the companies are, and big and small companies. Here's a slide devoted to our placement team. So you can see some of the kind of mood boards which they kind of set up outside of the department. We have brochures which detail CV guides, preparing them for interviews, assessment centres. They have success stories, and they regularly advertise opportunities as well for students to check on. Okay, so DMU Global, as I've just mentioned, is really exciting. And to be honest, with the current situation, we have had to postpone such trips as you would have expected. But in the past, we've been to a variety of different locations. We've been all around Europe, been to America, China, India, and so on. So it's been a really great chance for students to get out there, try new things, learn new languages, and experience things that they wouldn't whilst they're here. In addition to this, we actually do have something called DMU Local, which is basically where we encourage our students to get amongst new experiences, but locally in Leicester and East Midlands. So students will take part in volunteering activities, they'll get amongst the local community. And because Leicester is so rich in diversity and it's very international, students will be able to experience those things anyway. Here's a slide devoted to our trip to New York in 2019, where just over 1,000 of our students went to for a week-long trip. I think the cost itself in total was around £500, but it originally was £900. So the university did support students with travel bursaries. And they really had a fantastic time. The mechanical engineering students went to the Grand Central Station. The business and law students went to the United Nations. They got a chance to learn how it operates on a daily basis. They also got to speak on stage about issues they were passionate about and so on. And journalism and media students went to the NBC studios. Game art design students went to the High Line. And outside of this part of the trip, they also did do some sightseeing and, have lots of cheeseburgers and lots of shopping and so on. So there's a mix. It's not just all about their course. It's also a chance for them to try new things, as we said. Okay, so in terms of benefits for our international students. So on arrival, students will have a chance for the free airport pickup. But the link between Heathrow and Leicester is very close anyway. So it's about to get a coach, direct coach, about an hour and a half drive on the M1. We have the International Welcome Week as well, and this is a really good chance for students to make new friends, kind of feel settled whilst they're here in Leicester and acclimatise to the new environment. We also have the buddy scheme, which is basically where we encourage international students to make friendships with home students, and they'll meet on like a weekly or fortnightly basis. And that's again another great chance for them to just settle in to their life here in Leicester. Students also get a chance to enrol onto free in-sessional English classes to help them with essays and exams. And they also can take part in foreign language classes, such as learning Chinese, Mandarin in our Chinese Confucius Center. They can learn Japanese, German, French, Spanish, Arabic, and so on. So it's a really good chance again for them to broaden their horizons and try new things, because as we all know, you can break down so many borders and open up so many doors by language and culture. Okay, so scholarships for you and your students. So of course, we can send a more detailed link to you kind of shortly after the session, which you can refer on to in your own time and really go into detail with your students. But just at a high level, we have the international scholarship, which is £1,500, and we have the £500 early deposit discount. But just crucially, and again, this is really important that your students understand this, that it's more so on a first come, first served basis, and there is limited kind of availability. So it's really of the essence that students are as proactive as they can be. We also have the Global MBA Scholarship, which is basically at £2,500. Limited scholarships are available, and students would need to submit like an additional motivational letter justifying why they should get scholarship. So there are like 3 or 4 subsets which they need to cover. We also do have a sports scholarship. So if you come across a student that has previously been like let's say a regional or national champion in their respective sport, be it gymnastics, hockey, or football, that could be a consideration. So the maximum sports scholarship is £4,000 off the tuition fee, and then £2,000 towards support. So for example, like physio sessions or equipment and so on. But that's the maximum. So that sports scholarship is determined on like a case-by-case basis and dependent on the level of the student's experience. We also do have a really exciting scholarship called the High Flyers Scholarship. And this is basically if your student was to achieve, so this is exclusive for undergraduate students to clarify. So if your student was to achieve, 75% in their high school certificate, they could qualify for a £5,000 scholarship. And if they were to get 80%, they could qualify for a full fee waiver. But again, they do need to apply separately. And what we would advise is that students apply anyway, because although there is limited availability, of course, if they don't shoot, they won't score. So moving on to the next slide here, it's just basically details how you apply. I know you're of course experts in this, but just to make sure that we've covered all areas. Of course, we need the students' academic certificates and transcripts, a personal statement as well, which we would advise would be about 1.5 to 2 pages, especially if a student has had a study gap. And we'll talk about that in the following slide as to what study gap requirement we have. We need 2 reference letters as well to support students' application. Proof of English proficiency, so that can either be IELTS Online Indicator, TOEFL Home Edition, or again, the student does have the option of taking our own internal online English test, which is really valuable. So yeah, once students have achieved a conditional or unconditional offer letter, we would advise that they pay a deposit to secure their place and then also qualify for scholarship. So as of now, the deposit requirement is £4,000. So once they've paid that, we would then book them for if they're from a particular region in the world, we would book them in for a precast interview. That is for our South Asian students, and that will determine how we can move things further forward. And then once they pass that precast interview, we'll move forward with the CAS and of course request the necessary documents beforehand. Okay, so mitigating UKVI risks. So number one, study gaps. So just to clarify, we cannot receive applications from agents for students from South Asia who have, so for example, the study gap needs to be from high school to undergraduate, a maximum 2 years. And then from undergraduate to postgraduate, the study gap needs to be a maximum 5 years for the South Asia region. So any applications from agents directly. So that, again, crucially in the personal statement, they need to detail what they have been doing throughout that gap. So it's really important. And then they need to learn it off by heart so that, of course, they are well prepared when they have the interviews and credible, of course. So they need to explain if they've been working, have they been, caring for a family member, have they been traveling, and so on. So that's from high school to undergraduate, 2 years. The undergraduate to postgraduate, maximum 5 years. We're also not openly considering second master's applicants from this region as well. Unless, let's say, for Pakistani students, they do, let's say, a combined 2+2 bachelor's degree where they do 2 years undergraduate, 2 years postgraduate. We can consider such students. Visa refusals. We're also not considering or accepting any student that's had a previous visa refusal. So that's just something we really wanted to just really highlight there. And dependent cases as well. Okay, so moving on to territory overview. So we've spoken about this at a high level previously, but just to clarify, you cannot, let's say, I'm going to actually pass the mic over to Martin here, as he's going to just elaborate in a little bit more detail on this in particular.
Yeah, no problem, Joe. Yeah, so just to clarify, so in terms of we can accept applications from Weber globally. The only places we can't accept is Chinese students, number one, any students who are domiciled in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, we aren't able to accept, due to UKVI risks, applications from students from India in terms of the Gujarat region, number one, Haryana or Punjab. But we can accept applications from India or globally anywhere else, apart from Chinese students and students in the Caribbean. So that's pretty much that. Thanks, Joe.
That's great. Thank you, Martin. And yeah, that brings an end to the presentation. So yeah, thanks for listening. Hope that you found that informative. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. We can answer them as best as we can.
Bajinder, you have some questions you want to start?
Yes, just when you was on the last slide regarding study gap, you mentioned till up to post-graduation, but after, if someone has done the graduation and had got the experience, if we say they have been working at a supervisor or manager level, and they wish to come for the MBS, do you take mature adult candidates for that, or is there a study gap of 5 years for that?
No, so the maximum study gap for the region which we highlighted has to be 5 years from undergraduate to postgraduate. And just to clarify as well, on a wider note, the Global MBA at Mont is an entry-level MBA. So students who have had a little bit of experience, they'll find that way too easy. So it wouldn't be worth their time. And if they were to go for a credibility interview, it's going to be too much of a risk. So yeah, maximum undergraduate to postgraduate, 5 years.
If you can just re-clarify the deposit before cash and when they go for the second installment or the third installment, the fee structure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So just to clarify, once a student does receive an unconditional offer letter, they would need to pay £4,000 deposit. And for the students in the South Asia region, they would need to take a precast interview to determine suitability and credibility. And then, yeah, in terms of, let's say, paying the rest of their fees, students would then need to pay another payment to reach 50% of their fees before they register. And that's crucial. No matter if they're in the UK or still in their home country, they still need to pay 50% of their fees in order for them to register. If they don't, then they won't be able to continue with their studies. And that's really, it's really important your students understand that. And then throughout the rest of the year, students can pay in installments. So they do have the option in paying in quarterly installments or in monthly installments for 6 months. So that's quite manageable in that side of things.
Regarding English, yes, you have got your internal English, but those who are having their qualified B2 levels of IELTS, do they need to do the English test again with the university, or you accept those IELTS certificates?
So as long as the student's IELTS is valid, and it will still be valid for when we issue the CAS, that's fine. As long as it's UKVI and academic IELTS. And then if they don't have IELTS, we can help them move forward with the internal online English test.
Thank you. Once we apply for this visa, we need a proof of accommodation. So do you provide an accommodation letter, or do you take any deposit for that before, when you issue the case?
So once students have paid their deposit, and to be honest, once they actually get an offer letter, they'll receive information guiding them towards their accommodation. So once they've paid their deposit, they can start moving forward with the accommodation. We have an accommodation team that can support students with that. We also have private companies on site as well, which can offer, of course, private accommodation for students.
And do they need to pay some deposit to get that accommodation letter from them?
That particular question is something that we would need to kind of clarify with our accommodation team, and we'll go from there once it has been confirmed.
Final question, early bird £500 deadline date, please.
Okay, so it's a really good question. The deadline date hasn't yet been confirmed for this year, but let's say from previous years, the deadline historically has been kind of towards the end of July.
So let us take, until you don't declare it, we will consider it as early bird.
Exactly, as soon as possible. Literally, like the thing is that although there might be a deadline, that's still a bit fragile, because as we know with the whole situation, I think especially last year, so many students are going to defer to this year, and they already have. So there's going to be a lot more competition. So for your students, it's just in their best interest, if they do have the finances, to pay as soon as possible so that they can be rest assured that they've secured their place and got the necessary scholarships.
Thank you so much. That's all from me. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Baljinder. Thank you.
I have one question only. You mentioned that it's not possible to take the second master. I do not understand this part. So if a student already had a master from a UK university and want to do a second master, it's not possible.
So just to clarify, we can't accept any applications from Weber or agents for second master's applicants from the South Asia region.
Okay.
No, just to I would to add what Richard mentioned. For example, now it's a post-study work visa, but a student who has already completed a master within the UK, if they want to do a second master, is that applicable? Or those who have completed the degree in master in UK?
No, so that it qualifies to them as well, that we can't consider them. According to UKVI, those students are even higher risk.
Yeah, just maybe just to give a little bit of background, that this is really something that's being led by immigration and UKVI, sort of saying to us that we are seeing risks with this group of students. So they're kind of giving us a very, very strong steer that they don't really want us to be moving forward with those kinds of applications.
Absolutely. With PS post-study work coming up, I don't think this will be a requirement for students. This was prior considerations. But anyway, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. For my side, it's everything, Joe. Thank you, Martin. I mean, the presentation was excellent. Everything was very clear. I think that what is very, very interesting as well, the accommodation. I mean, the fee of the accommodation is very low compared to the rest of the United Kingdom, which they pay between 90 to 100, 110 pounds per week. So this is very low. And this can be a win-win as well for students to choose the university, because as we know, in London especially now, it's become very prohibitive to study in London, because when they need an accommodation, some students pay around £300 per week. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Very much. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now finished this session with the Montfort University. And I would like to thank all the sub-agents who will join us in the future and recruit students for the Montfort University. And myself and my team, we are here to help you. Thank you very much, everyone, to join us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.